Hello, good evening, and thank you for keeping it TV 47. This is Body Garage with I, Sheila Chelangat. Now, next Monday, on the 3rd of March, the world would be commemorating the World Hearing Day, a day that is set aside to promote and raise awareness of ear and hearing care. And so tonight, from the Nairobi ENT Clinic at the Anderson Center, 5th floor at the Nairobi Hospital, we have Dr. Grace Mwangi, who would be taking us through ear and hearing care. How are you, Daktari?
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic.
Okay, please introduce yourself to us and my audience.
Okay. I am Dr. Grace Mwangi. I'm an ENT specialist, ear, nose and throat, based at Nairobi Hospital, more so Nairobi ENT Clinic, which is a purely specialist clinic. And we deal with a majority of the ear and the nose and the throat.
And the throat.
Yes.
So tonight's episode, we are focusing on the ear. So what makes up the ear? Is it just this piece that we see outside? What does the anatomy of the ear look like, and what are their functions?
Okay. I would want to tell you that I have a keen interest, in as much as I'm an ENT specialist, with a bit of passion when it comes to the ear. What we like to have fancy names and say called otology. And so when we talk about the ear, we're talking about one of the organs that we have the 5 senses in our body, which is purely for hearing for most people, but you need to understand that it also has a part for balance. Okay. And if you remember biology, we used to be told the ear has 3 parts, the outer, the middle, and the inner ear. And basically the outer ear is what we see structurally outside here. And beyond that, there's a canal, which I usually like to describe as an cave, where we like probing. And beyond that cave, there's actually what is known as an eardrum. So that's what constitutes the outer ear. The middle ear is just beyond the eardrum, which is a space, and it has bones. Who knew your ear has bones?
Okay.
Yeah, ENTs, we can also deal with bones. So there is actually the middle part of the ear that has bones that I like to describe like when you go for a football match, and there is the wave that we do. The 3 bones of the ear create a wave. Okay. And those 3 bones are able to send a transmission to what we call the inner ear, which is the 3rd part of the ear, which is, can I say, the most crucial part of the ear, because this is where we have parts of the ear that you cannot replace. So that's what is basically an ear: an outer, the middle, and the inner ear.
And the inner ear. Okay, you've said it's not just about the hearing, it also does balancing.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
When I say that, the inner ear looks like a snail. You see the big house that looks like a coil? So that inner ear has a part that is responsible for interpreting the sound, but moreover and above that, it has a part that is able to give you balance and orientation. And sometimes some of the diseases that I can say that are missed out, and you have dizziness, or people can describe it as lightheadedness, or I was about to faint. If you come across a few doctors, they throw something in the whole terminology, what we call vertigo. That is also a part of the ear that is actually responsible to get you orientation when you are having a balance issue. So the ear is not purely about hearing, it also has a part for balance.
For balancing.
Yes.
All right, Daktari, let's move on now to some of the common conditions related to the ear. What are they?
When you rush to the doctor, it's never to say hi, right? I believe when you go to the doctor, you also want to avoid as much as possible, right? So that's why you always take your apples every day to avoid sickness.
To avoid you.
And when it comes to the ear, now most people will know that it's for hearing. So if you have a reduced level of hearing, that mandates you to come and see an ENT. If you do have pain, whether you like it or not, most people will rush in. If there's an ear discharge, I mean, our ears don't come out with pus or bleeding. Those are reasons to come in. And as I've told you, and I've even informed you, if you have dizziness, please, that's also something that would warrant you to give an option of seeing an ENT. Yes.
Okay. And what would be the risk factors that would probably make me get some of these, symptoms that you've mentioned?
The most unfortunate thing about hearing and also about the ear is if you have a problem of hearing, it's invisible. What we say, an invisible disability. If you are blind, people can grossly see you fumbling around.
Yes.
But if you're not hearing, no one is able to appreciate that. You might feel withdrawn, you might feel in your own box. So basically, when you have a hearing loss and there is that, then that brings you in. What would bring this? We are young. I would like to think I'm still young. But just with the body and how it is known to be, as we age, even there are other things that age, including your ear. So we do appreciate that an aging ear might not work as optimally as it did when you're in your 20s versus when you're in your 80s. So age is something that you can't change. However, things that can hasten things that bring about this. COVID came in. Do you know how cool it is to wear ear headsets?
Yes.
The only unfortunate thing, what do? We concentrate loud noises. Noise is sound at exaggerated levels.
Yes.
Right? Even when you are alone, you are insisting on that headset and at high volume. Two, we want entertainment.
Yes.
Entertainment means Friday, Saturday,
and
Sunday.
And even Monday.
Wow. Probably we need to check on your hearing. Fun. And basically what it means is when you go for concerts, these are exaggerated levels of sound. And these are things that we are always on the lookout for. And then there's little small little things. If you are putting cotton buds in your ears, quote unquote cleaning the ears, you'll be surprised how the ENTs will have a little bit of a problem with
Okay, we will get there, Dr. But then you mentioned something about age and hearing. So is it true that my hearing will get worse with aging?
It is not surprising that your hearing will depreciate with age, but it doesn't mean that it has to reach a point where that it affects your quality of life.
Okay.
If there are things that you can do right now to hasten the aging process, why not? And that's why people will not walk around everyone with a hearing aid, which is an assisting device. However, we do respect that as you age and you age gracefully, which includes also our ears aging gracefully, if you have a deficit that is enough to interfere with your quality of life, please get that hearing aid. The same way, if I'm holding my book, and you know how our parents start,
you just start going.
The book just goes further and further.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden, everyone has the glasses and they look at you with that condescending look. A hearing aid works.
You've mentioned something that I'm very guilty of, the headsets and earphones. So then what is the recommended volume that I should use when I decide to use my headset?
Okay, so sound has a measurement. The same way you'd say water in liters, in tons. So sound is measured in what we call decibels, basically loudness. And when you talk about that, there is what is known as levels that are not damaging to your ears. And when we say damaging, you remember when you talked about the inner ear?
Yes.
There is what I can say sensors, and they are very fragile hair cells that will keep on bending in and out because of high sounds.
Yes.
Now, if you put too high a sound, it means it can and get damaged. Unfortunately, the hair cells are those organs or parts of your body that you cannot replace. How sad that is.
Yeah.
You cannot go and replace an inner ear. And so we really want to protect. So normally we would say 0 to 20 decibels is what we call normal hearing. If we talked about our day-to-day activities, by the time you're using a vacuum machine, you're almost about to get to 70 decibels. Do you know how annoying a vacuum machine is?
I know, it's very annoying.
So by the time it's hitting 30 minutes of it, you're like... So we don't walk around getting into the matatu and checking how many decibels is this mat.
Yes.
All right? But if you are working, let's say, in an airport, and that's why you always see them with these protective devices, the kind of noise that is in the airport in terms of decibels is so high that it can be damaging that you have to protect your ears. So some of these little small things might be damaging, but it's a matter of repetitiveness. Two, it can also be as a result of one insult. When we watch movies or when a bomb blast happen, one thing they show in the movies is when there's a blast, they create this noise.
The ringing sound, yes.
Yes, what we call tinnitus. And it's basically, it's an insult enough to affect the frequencies. So you can have damage from one big blast or continuous insults.
Okay.
Continuous insults are what? If I'm always in the club, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that have your fun. But please be sure that chances you might want to see an ENT earlier than you'd want to see. Right?
Okay. Now, there's this common terminology when everyone has an ear problem, I have an ear infection. I don't know what does ear infection mean first, and what even causes it?
Okay. So ear infections, these are things that can act just the same way you can have a flu, just the same way you can have diarrhea, just the same way you can have quote-unquote pneumonia. You can also get an infection of the organ itself. And just the same way, outer, middle, and inner ear. Fortunately, our ear is also developing. So that's why a child is more prone to ear infection versus you as an adult. And because kids love each other more, I think, than adults, don't you think so? So they share a lot, all right? Their immunity is not at its maximum. So it's going through its own hurdles. And if you look at when they go to school, every parent will be like, oh, here comes the flus. Now, the ENT is a common conduit. There is little channels that connect these places. So a child whose immunity is not 100% still, just because of nature and you're going through the virtues of development. Two, the ear has not fully formed. When we say that, you know, when you yawn and you feel a pop sound, or when you blow your nose and you feel fullness, there's connections between your nose and the ear. That tube is still undergoing a lot of maturation, and that can be a conduit at which you can get ear infections. So what does an ear infection mean? You can have a painful ear. You went to coast, you swam, and you enjoyed, but guess what? Water is not sterile. So in the right kind of environment, if that water gets trapped together with wax, you can get an infection in the external ear. Unfortunately, as children, as I said, due to time as a factor, maturity of immune systems, you can get a lot of middle ear infections. Unfortunately, that can give you even damage to your eardrum. And some people come in as adults and we tell them, oh my God, you have a perforation in your, which is a hole in your eardrum. And it's just because of something that stemmed in your childhood. Okay. All right. And of course, if you have discharges, if pus is coming out, don't you think that's a problem? Oh, that's a problem. Yes, if there's pain, if there is definitely fevers and all these other things.
Okay, and you've mentioned the perforation, so to the eardrum. Now, how do you treat that?
So when we talk about ear infections, and more so when we talk about the cohort, the group of people who get this, you can get an ear infection at any time of your life. But as I told you, majority of the people who get it are the small kids, and more so in the middle part of the ear. Remember the eardrum behind there? If that infection is enough to create a hole, and when I say hole, it's because you feel pain. Sometimes there's pus that accumulates over there, and pus, as we know, always tries to get a way out. The eardrum is the easiest way out. You can easily get over it by sealing the eardrum. Once the infection clears, you're given drops, you're given antibiotics, pain dissolves, and you're good. You can heal well. Unfortunately, if you have repetitive of those infections, you can actually get a perforation, which is a persistent opening of the eardrum. Unfortunately, that cannot be treated using medication. When we say that, it means you have to literally go and repair the eardrum at one particular time, because it has opened a place that should not be open. And so there's some interventions that can be surgical to make sure that you don't keep on getting infections.
All right, thank you, Daktari, for that. We are up for our first commercial break. When we will be back, we will learn so much more on how now to clean the ear, some of the habits that can lead to even hearing loss. Do not go too far, but first take a look at the myths and facts of the day. hearing loss doesn't affect the rest of one's health, an untreated hearing loss increases one's risk of experiencing cognitive decline, dementia, falls, social isolation, and depression. Hearing loss affects only older adults. Teenagers and young adults are at risk of hearing loss due to the unsafe use of personal audio devices and exposure to damaging levels of sound at noisy entertainment venues.